Righto, I'll butt in on the video and hope that you've enjoyed the photos that Margaret and Robin have put together. As you can see, the Bennett family, especially Margaret and Dick, have covered a fair bit of ground and been involved in a lot of things over the years. Now we're here to commemorate Dick's life. He didn't want any sadness at all. In fact, when I've been in seeing him, probably each time he would say, "Oh, so-and-so's cried about my life coming to an end, but I don't want them to. There's more to life than crying. Be happy," he says. And I think he was pretty well right till the last. I had half an hour with him the morning he died, and I couldn't get over how good he looked and carried on at that point. And I know that he was waiting for his families, the Timaru version, Robin and Craig and their boys, and Neil and Susan from Christchurch, to come and have a working bee in the garden. And I'm pretty sure that when he realised that they were all there and probably working, he must have relaxed and things just happened. But peacefully he went, and I don't think he would have suffered, so we're very thankful for that. There are lots of happy times through his life. He and I go back a long way. We were friends right from the time we were knee-high to grasshoppers. And that's probably, well, I guess about 75 or slightly more years ago that we met up and started our hijinks that spread right through our lives. We've never been far apart, really. In Heathcote, where I lived, and the family lived for a period of time even next door to us, and then through in West Littleton. And the ironical part about that is that I ended up doing my PA year at Littleton, Maine. And at the moment, there's a lot of kerfuffle going on about Littleton, Maine and Littleton West combining as far as schools go. And apparently the locals are not very happy about the design of the new building because it doesn't fit the heritage part of Littleton, which is a pretty big piece. Well, Heathcote Valley, we had lots of fun there, because as we grew up we started doing things in a group, and one of them was to gather at the railway station of an evening and have a good old conflab. Now, I always think girls gossip and carry on far more than boys, but in those days there were 6 or 8 of us, and goodness knows what we found to talk about. I don't think it was girls, but we did and enjoyed life, and somebody would suggest we go for a walk down to Ferrymead, so we would take off and walk to the yacht club area there, and then back either home or to the station for a bit longer. Or another night, I suppose if there was nothing too great the next morning, we would walk the bridle path in the dark to Littleton, get a milkshake and an ice cream, and then walk back again. And Dick was always part of that and thoroughly enjoyed things. I'm actually going to have to put my specs on. I can't read Bill Gates's writing. Right, his mum and dad, I knew, well, as much as a next door boy would know them. The dad was an engineer on the inter-island ferries, and he would have spent most of his time on the boat, either getting ready to go out or packing up or checking whatever they do when the ship comes in to pick up the next load of people and goods. His mum, we knew, was in a good mood when she called out for David. But if things had not gone too well and Dick had erred in some way, it would be Richard! And in those days I thought, David? Richard? So in the finish he just got called Dick or Dave, depending on the mood. He always put his family first, and I mean family. There's Neil, if you don't know the children themselves, and Robin, and who have I missed? Jill. No, not you. No, Jill. Jill, unfortunately, is over in Perth. But I think what they instilled in their kids is probably still coming through today. Workability, stickability, you name it, they got a good grounding and an interest in sport. So really Margaret and Dick did a wonderful job with those children. His working life, I think he started off as an apprentice carpenter and eventually turned out to be a first-class carpenter. Did he work for a family firm down Dunedin? Yeah, so he must have been good enough to be taken on for that. But once that phase was finished, they were into, and they were married at this stage, picked up a job on a farm as a married couple, and they actually moved around. I think they were out at Flemington here, Southbridge there somewhere, up at Lauriston or Lyndhurst. They saw a bit of the countryside, and he picked up a lot of the skills that he was able to use in later life. Besides that, I know that after retirement, he was, well, during his working life, he was the breadwinner of the factory, of the family, I'm sorry. But after retirement, he became the bread maker. And they were renowned for their loaves of bread, thinly sliced and nicely buttered whenever there was a feed on somewhere. Now, Margaret tells me that finally she had to learn how to make bread. Now, she can cook any other thing under the sun, but bread was not one of those things until now. So, okay, no doubt he was a good teacher. Tramping, I'll cover tramping. He liked biking. He used to bike to work out at the freezing works. I don't know how safe he was on the road, because he only had one speed, or it was a one-speed bike or something, and it just went flat out. Tramping is where we fitted in with the story, because my wife and Margaret and Dick belonged to the Wanderers Tramping Club in Christchurch years ago, many years ago, before my time. And through that, I got roped in to partner into a film or something or other. I won't say we had a blind date, because she doesn't like that. Yeah, she gets irate when she hears that, but I thought it was the best blind date I had ever had, or have ever had. The two parents, of course, Dick and Margaret, are very proud granddad and grandma, or have been, and their grandkids have been a big part of their life. And we've got Liam and Tom, All right, well, I should have mentioned Robin's husband, Craig, anyway. He's the other half of that team. And we've got Rachel here and Lisa. Now, I'm going to say she's on trombone, but she's not. She's on the camera. And in Australia, of course, they've got Odette and Brad and Paula. So they're very fortunate to have those grandkids. And really, they have given them their all.
True great grandkids.
Oh, I haven't got to that yet. Okay, I had temporarily forgotten the fact that they are the proud owners of two little great grandkids in Canberra, where Paula is. Dick was always known as a handy man. I really called him Handy Andy behind his back. And nowadays I think you'd call him Mr. Fixer, because there was little or nothing that he would attempt to do and fix. And for anybody, anyone had to say they're having trouble with this or that, and he would front up and help out or do the jobs that were needed. So to me, he's the Jonah Lomu of our community. He really has had a lot of influence on people. Their love of gardening, of course, is obvious, and Dick was a gardener extraordinaire as far as veggies were concerned. You name it, he would have it tucked away somewhere in that veggie patch out the back. And I think they spend all their free time freezing vegetables that he produced, and probably at the other end of the season, or through the season, giving it away to the kids, and at the end of the season, I suppose, cleaning the freezer out, was it?
Should we?
It should be. Okay, no, so that love was very great. And I think Margaret got her keenness for gardening from her parents, who had a home in Ferry Road in Christchurch, and were competition garden winners. So it's in the genes. And so
It stopped. It stopped.
Eh?
It stopped.
Oh, I might have missed the odd one, but hopefully it'll be in a few of the others. Really, apart from waffling on, well, perhaps I can remember about the paper run. Now, I suppose, was he still at the works?
Yes.
Then? Yeah. And lo and behold, he takes on a paper run. And I think they are one of the unsung heroes of our lives. We expect the paper to be out there every morning, or I do anyway, not have to forage for it through the garden plants or in a shrub. So I hope his aim was good. I don't remember him dropping our paper anywhere that I couldn't find it. But I think in the background, Margaret had to spend a fair bit of her time chasing up people to pay for Dick's endeavours. I suppose that sort of thing just doesn't happen of its own accord. And I'll finish at the moment with the fact that their caravan used to sit in the caravan port alongside the house by the road, and they were very keen members of the caravan club group, and travelled a fair bit of Canterbury and maybe further afield, I don't remember, just being with people, I suppose, a bit like the wagons in America. I suppose they pulled their caravans up each night in a circle and all got out and had a powwow and a barbecue or something and rehashed the day. So I will just leave you with that as an introduction to Dick. I know he's listening, and probably will get back to me and point out a few home truths at some stage. Now, there are people who would like to have a say here. Neil, or is it Robin that's going to start? Yeah. Now, they're going to give you their version of their dad, and I just hope it coincides with what I've told you.
I'm taking the easy option and just doing a verse. Our father kept a garden of the heart. He planted all the good things that gave our lives their start. He turned us to the sunshine and encouraged us to dream, fostering and nurturing the seeds of self-esteem. And when the winds and rain came, he protected us enough, but not too much, because he knew we would stand up strong and tough. His constant good example always taught us right from wrong, mark us for our pathway that will last a lifetime long. We are our father's garden, we are his legacy. Thank you, Dad, for everything.
Well, he'd be very proud of you, Robin. Very proud. And I know he was. I saw before a St John's picture on the screen, and I've forgotten about the fact that he was a pretty active member in St John for many, many years. In fact, I think he and Margaret have still been going to, I don't know, Sunday night meals or...
Fellowship.
Yeah, to just keep up with all the others that have been in that group helping. So just another aspect of our Dick, or Dave, depending on the situation. Now, Neil, your chance.
I'll do mine first. We've got a recorded little message from Gillian, so quite something to be able to do that. So I can only pick up from 57 years ago, so Trevor's told you a bit of the early history, and I have got some things to duplicate some of what Trevor said. But I was born in Ashburton, and I was christened Neil. Dad was Richard, as was his father, and his father before that. So Granddad was named Dick, Dad was Little Dick. What the hell was I going to be called? So I'm called Neil. I thought they wanted Christian names that couldn't be abbreviated. It worked for me, but it didn't work for Jill and Rob. So my early life and that of my sisters, and later Rob, had a few moves around Great Canterbury. His mum and dad worked on married couples of farms. So the real list is Ashburton, Southbridge, Horswell, Horowara, Lyndhurst, where I started school, then Jack Brand's, which was 200 metres south of the town boundary of Beach Road. And 48 years ago, moved to Cambridge Street, where we all attended Hempstead School and then Ashburton College. Once they purchased Cambridge Street off our neighbours, the Binsteads, Dad worked for a couple of building companies, including building relocatable homes for Landmark Homes, and then he did seasonal work at Freezing Works and eventually working there full time. One day he made a very bad mistake. We were in the car, Dad walked across the road to get Mum's magazines and our comics from Russell Anstice's bookshop. He was given a trotting calendar by the shop. It was meant for the Wakanui Bennett's. And taking it back, I told him to cancel my comic and to subscribe to that instead. That helped fuel an addiction that today means I have shares in 22 racehorses. Russell, as an early teenager, I'd sometimes win radio competitions to win members' tickets to Addington Raceway, and without complaint, Dad would take me to the races. He never really enjoyed it, but he would take me. To get ahead, Dad worked 2 jobs, starting at 3 a.m. to meet the press truck, roll the paper, and then deliver to a large part of the east side of Ashburton. The policemen at home a week ago were fantastic to deal with. Dad used to cause them grief when delivering the papers to the CBD. The driver would drive down the footpath behind the parking meters, just dropping them in the shop doorway, and they chase him. And it's you again. They leave him alone. He was out in the worst of the 1975 windstorm that decimated many trees in mid-Canterbury. And with no power, we all sat around in the lounge and rolled papers by hand with candlelight before he went out and delivered them later. We all detested Saturday mornings. There were so many cancelled papers on Saturdays that Dad needed a passenger to call addresses not wanting a paper. That meant sitting in the back seat as Dad weaved backwards and forwards across the road, steering occasionally. It was a grab of paper, touch the steering wheel, it was hopeless. As he left school early to take up a trade to help his family out with his father not being well, I think Dad was happiest in his working career in his last role in the engineering workshop at the Freezing Works. Much of that metal that he might need one day and stored in 2 garages come from those days. Robin approached the fire brigade when they were at home last Saturday to see if they'd like to have a practice fire if we torched the back garage. They smiled and declined. Dad never got old until the last few weeks. Everyone here will remember Dad doing things for everyone else. He didn't attend 206 here as a guest. Always here with Mum helping cooking and serving. St John's Ambulance, including running cadets that we attended. Building an extension on our first home in Riccarton. Many projects in Dunedin and Timaru for Robin. Farm work for Gillian many years ago. Fuchsia Group, Horticultural Society, Hearing Society. And a taxi driver for many years to anywhere that Mum wanted to go. The car in its own way to just about all garden centres. I think you can hear it.
Dad, I've been totally blessed to have had you as a role model, a truly amazing man. You never said no to anyone, volunteering, coaching, or just lending a hand. You drove carloads of kids everywhere, tennis or hockey, you were always there. If it could be made or fixed, that's what you did. My playhouse must have been the biggest of all time. I guess it was supposed to be for Robin as well. But at the time, I'm sure it was all mine. You built the best go-karts. I did laps at the church fair. You built a massive shed for housing all the deer. And while some may have had a beer in their hand and a smoke in their mouth, in your hand was a hammer, and in your mouth at least one nail. Thank God I got some of your genes, because I moved so far away. I've mended what was broken and built whatever I could. But I'm sure if I'd asked for help, you'd have come to WA. But I don't save things just in case. My garage looks as it should. It's because of you I never give up and give everything a go. And if someone asks for help, the answer is never no. Memories of my childhood, the good and the bad. White baiting in Punakaiki, up before the sun, filling up the net with tiny little fish. I had so much fun. We piled in the car and travelled near and far when you measured and fitted fly screens. Although I hate to travel now and would rather go nowhere, you'll drive all around New Zealand, Facebooking the scenes. Hot off the press, newspapers have a distinctive smell. You knew who was home and through with such precision, knowing exactly where each newspaper fell. Early morning deliveries certainly left an impression. You worked so hard. At the time I did not see, not one job, but 2 or 3. You ensured Mum was home, no childcare for us. Although we were not rich, we never went without. I was hardly ever babysat, our parents always about. I know you could get mad, but I never saw you sad. You always had something to say, to brighten someone's day. A happy-go-lucky Kiwi bloke, never without a joke. You're always busy helping others, right until you left. The only thing you did not do was stop and sit and rest. I'm sure as one lucky lady, your marriage one to envy. No time to say goodbye, you left far too fast. Thank you for giving me an unforgettable past. But come and visit me, I'll look out for the signs. But just please not when I've had too many wines.
Thank you, Gillian. She's mentioned church fairs. I never thought about those, but over the years, Dick, with helpers, barbecued the sausages for the St Paul's Spring Fair every year. And Margaret, not to be outdone, always helped in the hall in the savoury and jams and pickles stall. So while they were not what you'd call avid church goers, they certainly supported our church to the whole, And also, when we've had a gospel evening of a Sunday night, which is just a church service with a bit of a difference, they always came because I think Dick really enjoyed the sing-along that was held each time. Now, I'm going to call Anne Truman, a member of our Fuchsia group, who's going to read pieces that have been written by the Australian grandchildren. So, Anne, the floor is yours. These are the children, Odette and Paula and Brad, the son.
The first reading I'm going to read is from Odette. I can't imagine Grandad as frail, weak or ill. To me he was always strong and tanned, riding his bike around Ashburton, able to nip out to his workshop and build something from scratch. He built me a beautiful dresser with bookshelves for my bedroom when I lived in Christchurch. He was able to fix or make anything. I picture Grandad out in the garden, watering the plants, mowing the lawn or tending to his vegetable garden. The tomatoes from my grandparents' vegetable garden are still the most delicious I've ever tasted. Although I've spent most of my life in Australia, I've so many memories of both my grandparents from my early and tween years. Most involve visiting them at 22 Cambridge Street, driving around town in the Renault, playing in the caravan, or luxuriating in the spa, all the while Grandad working in the garden or garage. He was good at telling people off too, but usually because he was right. Don't slide down the stairs and stop your squealing. I remember being about 11 years old and running round the Ashburton domain without shoes, and Grandad yelling at me to put the shoes on as I could get stung by a bee. I ignored him, and no less than 5 minutes later was stung as I stood on a bee. But Grandad whipped out his pocket knife and pulled out the sting. I can still hear his laugh, almost a guffaw in my head. Grandad had an irreverent sense of humour he passed on to my mum. All of Ashburton will be mourning as he was loved by so many people. It's hard for me to separate Grandad and Grandma, as they were a partnership and shared so much together. Their love of gardening and deserved pride in their award-winning fuchsias. Their best friends for 60 years, Trevor and Anne. Their love of community and desire to help people. Sorry, I've lost my space. Picked flowers from their beautiful garden for visitors to take to Ashburton Cemetery, and taught seniors how to use the internet. They are definitely internet savvy. How many people can say their grandparents are on Facebook? In the mid-90s, they had his and hers computers, connecting with fuchsia societies around the world. I grieve for my grandma, who has lost her husband of 58 years, when they'd hoped to have a couple of decades more. I hope that the community they were so good to now looks after her. Richard Bennett was a true Kiwi and a good man, and I was fortunate to have him as my granddad. Ta-ra. This was only a small one and was from Brad. You were the only grandfather I knew, and although we only spent a small amount of time together, I look back on it with the fondness of a young boy looking up to his granddad. You always seemed very tough, and while that sometimes scared me as a boy, I had no trouble accepting your offer to build me a tree house. I missed my opportunity to get to know you better once I had grown up. A shame, because I think now we would have a lot in common. I am happy you lived such a great life and will always keep you in my memories. Goodbye, Grandad, and thanks again for the tree house. This last one is from Paula, and it's entitled 5 Minutes More. If I could have you back for 5 minutes more, I would thank you for the time we had. Thank you for choosing to be my granddad. If you could just come back for 5 minutes more, I would tell you things I hadn't told you before, like how I remembered you kicking me on the butt, but when I was bad, but making me hot Milos, even though I made most folks mad. When I was so little and you took me to town, you realised I had no undies on and it made you frown. I remember sitting on your knee, you reading a story to me. If not 5 minutes, then in just 3, I would let you know you meant so much to me. If you just gave me maybe 2, I would say how much I loved you. I would tell you that Hannah and Oscar do too, and let you know there is no one else like you. Now you are gone, and there's no minutes more, not 1, 2, 3, or 4. But the magic I have is when I close my eyes. You're there in my memories, so alive. Love, your favourite granddaughter.
Get all the seats, Steve.
Thanks, Ian. I think all those kids have been privy to my notes. Now, has Brother Roger arrived yet? He has. Welcome. Now, would you like to say a word or two? Right, Vicky's going to speak on behalf of her mum. Diana, David's good-looking sister.
I need to first explain that our dad was Dick Bennett, and the siblings grew up with David, so there was no mix-up. And to us, he has always been David and will be remembered as our big brother David. David has always been my minder, even if in our younger days I did not at times appreciate it. And this goes with a lot of other stories, and thought he was bossy and bolshy. I realise now it was for my own benefit. I remember in his early days, he loved working in the garden in Heathcote with Grandad, who was known for his patch of flower of spring cabbages he used to sell. David was out helping him one day, aged about 4. He was given the job of handing Grandad the plants. Instead of taking them out of the seed tray, he was going along behind, pulling out what was planted and handing them over to be planted again. It took a little while for Grandad to realise the makings of a great gardener. Our early years, I recall, we were in Heathcote, living next to the Gamblins and down in the valley. We were in a world of our own, made our own fun. The older boys were the leaders and used to make up sledges and show the younger siblings what to do. We spent many happy hours sledging down the port hills, waxing up the runners so they would go faster. Across the road from us was Mrs. King's orchard full of beautiful fruit. We could always find a hole under the hedge and a lot of the time didn't wait for the fruit to ripen. The consequences you can imagine, and we used to get a dose of castor oil to help. I think in those days we were slow learners as we kept going back. They were happy days and good to look back on regardless of the ups and downs that came the family's way. David started a secondary school at Christchurch Boys High with Trevor Gamblin, but in his second year we moved to Cromwell. He was much more advanced in the classwork they were doing there, and it had been a huge transition for us all. Dad had been ill, so Mum was running a milk bar and tea room so she could be there for us with it rather than out working. David became bored at school, not quite the story you told. David became bored at school and started to get into trouble. Mum and Dad decided at the end of that year, he was almost 15, and rather than carry on at school and get expelled, as the writing was on the wall for just that had been his warning, he finished school and joined the Love family business to do his carpentry apprenticeship. David wanted to go and work in the freezing works because some of his friends were there earning big money. Dad wouldn't hear of it and insisted on getting a trade first. Then he was free to please himself. He eventually got his wish, but still had his trade to fall back on. The years after he went out working and various other things, I went to secondary school in Christchurch and then nursing training. We were never in close proximity, but our bonds were strong and we made the most of any chance to get together that came along. We may have been miles apart in distance, but never far when there is a telephone. After our parents had both passed, this was more evident, even though by that time I was in the North Island and still nursing with a young family to care for, and face-to-face meetings were rare. We still never drifted. I want to say a big thank you. I have appreciated your love and caring. And I'm sure Philip and Roger feel the same. We have all remained close siblings. It has been a tremendous thing. There's so many families today don't have what we have. I'm sorry, I used to sometimes read at times that weren't convenient and used to laugh and joke about it. I knew that you would always find the time to talk to me, whether it be garden questions like spraying or listening when I had personal problems. It was always good advice I could rely on. Thank you for being a wonderful big brother and being part of our family and making us so close-knit. Our conversations over the last 2 or 3 weeks was something that had never crossed my mind before. To me, you were always going to be there. So it has been a huge wake-up call and realisation that life takes many turns and is fragile. It was an unbelievable shock last Saturday. But I am so glad that for you that was quick, as you did not deserve to suffer, and without a doubt, that is what would have been the outcome. You are now in a big peaceful garden, but I do hope the lawns are mowed and the edges trimmed, and the border's perfect because you deserve it to rest a while. While a link has gone out of our family chain, we siblings will be as close as always, and will be there for Margaret and the family. Your legacy of hard work will be carried on for sure.
Well done, Vicky. 2 errors there. Well, 1 error.
Blame Mum, I just read it.
Okay, I went to Christchurch West. West the best. And the other is a problem that was solved for me and my brother Bob and my dad. He could never make out how the fruit was disappearing from the trees along the bridle path road. Now, if he was only here now, I'd wise him up. Right, he's doing a firing line. Okay, now Roger.
Mainly I've got broad shoulders.
Fair enough. Thanks, Roger.
I just like to concur with what Diana has said. That all sent her words before I got here today, so I'm not going to say too much. I might concur with you two. I think the gardening gene missed some of this.
Yeah, is that
The
right?
gardening family, but it stopped before it got to me, luckily.
Well, you've got all his other genes, or your father's.
Yeah. David was, Dick David, yeah, he was 10 years older than me, so growing up I can barely remember him in his Boys' High uniform at Heathcote before we moved to Central Otago, and really, you know, he wasn't at school very long down there, and I was pretty small and he left, so and he was a fairly frequent visitor. He went to Leiden, as I said, and worked for Love Construction down there, which was probably the biggest building construction company in Dunedin, or probably Otago. And actually our uncle of J.Y., he and Fletcher had started off together in business. Fletcher decided to go to the north, and Love's tried to stay down the south. I think they should have got that around somehow. We have very close connections with our great uncle, J.Y., and he must have had a lot of feelings for our parents, Dad being Crocker and Mum then. And I can always remember one time we had the Queen coming to Dunedin. So David was dispatched in J.Y.'s brand new Ford car to Cromwell to pick us up. It was that time when you had these little rubber, I can always remember these little rubber suction cups with 3 bits of stuff and the Union Jacks on them. And so he was sent to Cromwell to pick us up, to take us down to line up and see the Queen. I must admit that was the first thing I really had to look up to David, because it's the first time that I've seen a Ford car do 100 miles an hour on a double road. Not once, twice. So, yeah, he certainly gave old J.Y.'s car a bit of a remount. He was working quite a bit then at the Waipori power station. They were upgrading, or building a new power station there. And so he was in there, and he got himself an old motorbike, a BSA, was it? Yeah. And he would come to Cromwell occasionally. Now, to get from Waipori to Cromwell, you come up the back road to Lawrence and then on up. And I, you know, had a bit of work at Waipori over the latter years, and even now, that's certainly not a motorbike ride. And I don't know how he did it without coming to grief many times. So yeah, for you know, as said, David was mostly from my part of the life. He was gone from the family nest as such. So it was just visits and holidays and those types of things that we'd see him. When we moved back to Christchurch, and I actually picked up a motorbike. I went out to Lauriston, I think, one day to see him. And I can remember actually, he must have left some clothes down there. I remember the story. So I got into flying a wee bit, and I said, I'll fix it up. We were coming up Ashburton for a competition thing there. So I tied all these clothes up in a pair of trousers, got all bundled up, and went up. I think it was Lauriston, was it? Lyndhurst, yeah. And fired these things out the window of the aeroplane. I can always remember one leg come undone. It was this big trouser leg streaming down. But you did find them, I think.
I think you got the water race.
Yeah. So yeah, over the years, yeah, we you know, our family, as Diane has said, we've been close, but not overly close. We talk to each other a lot, and it's always been great knowing that of all our families that David was there to just to be there for us, and I'm going to really miss that. I honestly didn't realise how sick he was. And I can only say he's taken a chip off the old block, because our father, he probably not quite as dramatic as David, or not quite as kind as what David's gone, but yeah, he was also pretty sick and never told anyone about it until it became quite evident. So yeah, I'm going to miss him. I'll be there for you if there's anything I can do. And while I'm on my feet, our older brother Philip was unable to get here today. He's had a new business venture, so he had a meeting tied up that he couldn't get there. And our son Scott, he really he was sort of a family historian, and he was dead keen to come down, but he's put his back out and can't sit down for a very long time, getting around like harsh a pocket knife. So yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, we'll miss David.
Thanks, Roger. Your Scott, I think, is the genealogy expert of the family, isn't he? So, you know, everything that's happened in this part of the world will be well documented. And I know Margaret and Dick have looked into the genealogy of other relations back in the home country area. You will have seen the odd set of blue jerseys. That's our fuchsia group that we have all belonged to for many years, and Margaret's interest and ability in fuchsias, well, it's worldwide as far as knowledge goes. She's certainly world famous in the world. We like to say she's world famous in Ashburton, but it's more than that. And we've had some wonderful fuchsia do's over the years. I'm just thinking in terms of annual meetings and fuchsiaramas, social gatherings, and we've been to those, quite a team of us usually, and had lots of fun. I remember one that Dick was involved in pretty fully way back in 1988, I think it was, and it was a do that was held in Wellington, and there's usually a theme for the gatherings, and it just happened to be pea. And you had to think up something to go dressed in to do with pea. Now, being inventive and pretty thoughtful, old Dickie boy got himself a pair of old overalls, grey overalls, and what did he do? He painted white stripes on them. Now, pea's not convict, is it? But it stands for pedestrian crossing. It was PC. Black and white. Well, okay, yeah. Time dims the memory of it. I know I went to, God, what did I go?
You wore people last year.
Yeah, but I was wee Willy Winky. Yeah, in my purple nightshirt. With the top and a candle. Now, beat that and you beat me. Okay, that's the end of our formal part. Is there anyone who would like to say a few words to Margaret or about Dick? Just anyone that's been in a group that he's been in. We know he's given everything to whatever he's belonged to, probably over and above the usual amount, and yet his family never suffered for his involvement in these other things. Okay, oh, sorry, here we have Russell.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Russell Anstis.
Want to share a horse?
I've already had a mention today, Neil, haven't I? So Margaret and Robin and Neil and the family. I've known the Bennett family for many, many years, probably mostly through St Paul's Church. The Gamblins and the Bennetts and others. It goes back a long way. But as we got a wee bit older, we got a wee bit deaf. And we sort of meet up in this room here in the Hearing Association. Pardon, Trevor?
What did you say?
Anyway, I've had the role of president for 15 years, and I was looking forward in April next year to giving the role to Dick Bennett, who is my vice president. So now I don't know how many years I'm going to have that ahead of me now. But never mind. I just want to pass to the family our grateful thanks for what Dick had done. In here, we talked one night about donating some trestles, but they needed a framework to hold them there. Within 2 days, it was done. Dick had just come down here and done the job. So that's the sort of guy that he was. I just want to pass on behalf of the members of the Hearing Association our condolences. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you, Russell. Yes, Dave, I was going to say, Dick never shirked any jobs in Russell's Hearing Association. In fact, I think they thought if there's a job to be done, we'll look at Dick first.
If there's anyone in the room that wants anything, just come down and have a look at the garage. There's no dollar option on trade me, you just come and help yourself.
Yeah, you must bring a trailer.
It's a 2-for-1 deal.
That does run in the family.
Right. Okay, anyone else? Okay, well, I'd just like to close by thanking you all for coming and supporting us in the loss of Dick. It's going to take a long time, I think, to get over the fact that he's not here with us, not round the corner, just can't be called on now. Hopefully he's taught Margaret all the bits and pieces that need to be done to run their property, and what she can't do, family and friends will certainly step in and help. So thanks once again for coming. And anything, Margaret, you want to add?
So we should afternoon tea.
Yeah, okay. Right, well, it's afternoon tea time. Dick would wish that you circulate and mingle and talk about him. I don't think he'll be offended at any of the things he hears. Right, afternoon tea.